Welcome back to the Atari ST Nostalgia GFA BASIC tour. In the previous video we got to know how to fill in shapes, actually automatically draw filled boxes, and we explored what fill patterns actually are available to us, created some code to cycle through them to choose the right ones. We will use this knowledge now to do some more with this. In this case we will draw some filled circles on the screen, and this will also present us with a challenge to see how actually, what's the best way to use random numbers for this to get the nicest result. So this will be a nice exercise in problem analysis and solving again. So I will go to my GFA BASIC editor, which as you can see I started in direct mode to explore the commands. Because we already knew from a previous video I can draw a circle by providing some x and y coordinates and a radius. So in this case I drew one in the middle of the screen. I will choose a nice fill, in this case the 1 to 9, which should be bricks, and then I can fill the circle. Now as you can see, filling the circle actually takes quite a lot of time, so this is probably not the best way to do it. Luckily, of course, just as for boxes, we actually have a p-circle command. Oh no, this is an error, sorry, syntax error, yes, because if I want to draw this, I actually should also provide the coordinates and then do the same, but now it immediately draws a circle, and you can see it actually still was quite slow, which is interesting. But yeah, the routines for drawing circles are just more difficult than so if I draw another one with a bigger radius, you can see the routine is quite slow, but it's still a lot quicker than drawing a circle and then filling it, and this is also an easier way. So we are going to use this p-circle command together with some user input and with some random numbers, like we did with the boxes and draw command to draw dots before. So I will just clear the screen for good measure, go escape, and as you can see I already loaded the code. So this is actually quite a simple one. Basically it asks me how many circles do I want to draw, and it writes that input in the p-circles string, percent command, so an integer. It will clear the screen, and then it will say, okay, I am drawing this amount of circles with a random fill pattern, and then I will go to a loop for next loop again, counting from 1 to the value that the user has input, put some coordinates in, and as you can see I put some numbers before because I want the circles to be within a specific range, and I want the radius of the circles to be between 25 and 50. So that's why here I chose 25 and 75. But also I don't want the edges of the circles to go outside of the screen. I want the whole circle inside the screen. That's why for the x-coordinate I actually chose it should be 75 at minimum. So if the circle is 75 radius, it will just touch the edge of the screen, but it will not leave it. And actually the y-coordinate I made a little bit bigger even because I don't want the circles also to cover the text, so instead of 75 I chose 90. Of course the maximum value for x should then be 640 minus 75, which is 565 I guess. So I put 490 and 75 together as the maximum value. Now these are hard values, and yeah, it works, but it's actually not the nicest way to do it, but I will elaborate on that later, and we will change the code accordingly. Of course I will choose some pattern from fill group number 2 with the standard color of 1 because I'm in monochrome, and then I will actually draw a filled circle using the x, y coordinates and the radius that I let determine at random by the code, and I will repeat that step the number of times the user will actually has provided us. So I run the code. How many filled circles do I want to draw? Let's just draw 20 because this is quite slow, so don't make this number too high. And you can see, yeah, it draws 25 circles, and then the program ends, and it chooses a random pattern at all the time. So yeah, this is the output that it provided. You can see, and also because the patterns, there's only 24 available. So if I choose one at random, you can actually see that it tends to choose the same one quite often. The chances of getting the same one within a range of 24 is actually quite high. But actually, yeah, this program is working nice, but I want it to be nicer because I still want the radius to be somewhere between 25 and 50. And I also don't want the edges of the circle to be wider than the screen. However, if a circle has a radius of 25, I want it to be able to be close enough to the edge of the screen to actually touch it. Because now a circle can only touch the edge of the screen when its radius is actually the maximum of 75, which you see here. But that means I have to make the random range of x and y dependent on what the radius actually is. We are now going to do that. Of course, if these two variables are dependent on the value of this one, it means I have to set this value first before I set the x and y values. So that's the first thing we are going to do. Just do a block start and block end. And go up here and then move the block. I don't have to do anything else with this one. It will still be somewhere between 25 and 50. So that's quite okay. But now for the x, this is quite interesting. So basically, the minimum value of x is actually equal to the radius of the circle. So that one was quite easy. And then I have to make the total. So the maximum of x is actually 640 minus the radius. But if I put here 640 minus radius, it will actually be bigger because let's say if I say 640 minus radius, this is not correct, because what I did here is I put the maximum. This is the maximum value, but the maximum value of x is not just this part, it's also this part. So I have to account for that, which means I have to do minus 2 times the radius. Yeah, I know. And this will actually work. So basically, the minimum value of x is the radius itself, and the maximum value is 640 minus 2 times the radius, but then plus 1 time the radius. That's basically what this line is saying. So it took a bit of thinking, but you have to just really go through the numbers really slowly, and you can see that actually, it's not too bad. Now for the y value, because I don't want it to overwrite the text, the minimum value is the radius plus, let's say, 20. The radius plus 20 is the minimum value of the y coordinate. So I always have 20 pixels at the top of the screen left. And of course, here I have to do the same. The maximum value of x is actually 400, which is the maximum value of y. In this case, the center of the circle would be right at the edge of the screen. And of course, minus, and again, 2 times, because I have to deduct it 2 times here, because I already have it once at the beginning of the statement. And then again, do radius percent minus 20. So basically, yeah, it looks kind of complicated, but if you sort of go through it slowly, I hope people haven't just stopped the video because they get confused by numbers. Numbers are friendly. You shouldn't be afraid of them. But basically now I said, yeah, whatever the radius is, the x and y coordinates will be limited to a range that will allow them to draw the circle, but the edge of the circle can touch the screen, whatever the radius is, but it can never leave the screen. Of course, the random pattern will still be the same. It will be like somewhere between 1 and 24. The depth fill I will choose is just the same. It will just get a variable. And I didn't even need to use this variable. I could just use depth fill 1, 2, and then add this statement here. But I think this is just a bit easier to... I will leave the defining of the pattern and actually applying it to a command. I like to use variables for this. And then, of course, I will just use the same p-circle command to draw the circles. So I will test the code. It seems there are no real errors in it. So let's see if I draw 100 circles. There should be, and as you can see, there's an error in my code. Because in the left and right and top it seems to be working okay, but at the bottom it doesn't. So where did I go wrong? Ah, I can see it already. Yes, this minus should actually be a plus. So I calculated it wrong. I deducted less than I had to. And it should be working fine now. As you can see now, the circles don't leave the screen. They leave a nice gap of 20 pixels at the top and then the bottom, at the top and at the bottom. So the text I write at the top will not be overwritten, and the 20 pixels at the bottom are just basically because I like symmetry. I don't like to be, if I leave something on top, I like to leave the same at the bottom. It just looks nicer. And as you can see, this code also works fine. So it was a small challenge to really, yeah, you can use a random number generator, but it can be quite complicated when you make it dependent on other variables. But just go through it slowly, really think the steps in your head, and then yeah, you can see you can solve any problem you want. And if you put that solution in the code, then the code will work just fine. So this is the last short video I did on drawing fill patterns. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next video, we will actually put everything we've learned into one big program to make sort of a nice, glorious graphics demo. I will just walk you through the code in that one. But for now, this video has come to an end, so goodbye, and I hope to see you next time.